one of his son, and the other was infertility of Sarah. So we connected both of these with the urbanization and the city-state culture. And Ur was the capital city of the empire Mesopotamia, and from that security is given by the world. The human-made fort are there, and from there he moved to the land. So when we read Genesis, we can see an anti-city sentiments. So that is, even God's purpose for the world, his creation, for the earth, is not city but garden. So God created not the city but Garden of Eden. So in the Garden of Eden, every living being and flora and fauna, everything lived in harmony. So that is what we read in Genesis chapter 1 and 2. So the things changed only after the fall of human being, or Adam and Eve, and they committed sin, and they disobeyed God's command. So we will later go into detail of that thing. And we now concentrate on Terah and Abraham's journey. And Abraham was called by God, and he was promised against the infertility and life expectancy, the mortality. He was blessed, promised to have numerous descendants that nobody can count it. So that was the main blessings he received at the age of 75. So that we should be not. And another promise is God blessed him, and he will be a blessing for all others. So these two should be combined together. That is, we are chosen by God, and we are blessed by God, not because God has shown any favor to me or to us. God loved the whole world because the whole creation is God's. So everything seen and unseen is created by God. So God doesn't want anybody to face death, or anybody to face the judgment, or anybody to be perished. So God loves everybody, but human, out of their selfishness and greed, they disobeyed God, and they started to live on their own without obeying God's commands. So in that case, God, for the first time, as far as we are concerned, our Bible is recorded, Abraham was chosen by God in order that he will be a blessing for others. So God blessed Abraham because he loved the whole humanity. God blessed Abraham because he did not want the other humanity, members of the humanity, and even the whole earth not perish. So that is the purpose of his calling. So otherwise, if we think that God blessed me or blessed us because He has special favor for me, and that will lead to the fanaticism and this fundamentalism, religious fundamentalism and everything. So God chose me because He don't want others to perish. So that is the basic concept here. And now when we move forward, we can see one issue in the first generation itself. Who is that? When we start with Terah and Abraham, and Abraham was called by God, you go to the land of Canaan flowing with milk and honey. And with that, faith journey started with Abraham. And in that journey, in the first generation itself, one person was out of that legacy. Who was that? So he started his journey with his wife Sarah and Lot. And we can see the chapter 12. We read the beginning of journey of Abraham. And the next chapter itself, chapter 13, we read about the separation between Lot and Abraham. So when we read closely the passage, just read verse 6 of chapter 13. That is, we read, so that the land could not support both of them living together, for their possessions were so great that they could not live together. For their possessions were so great that they could not live together. So what was the main issue that did not allow them to stay together? The wealth, the material wealth, the possessions. So the possession itself can create division, separation, disunity among the family members. So till that time they were dependent on each other, they need each other, but now on the possessions was that much higher, then the relationship broke. And another thing we can find out from Lot's experience, that when we move forward, they decided to separate. So if you go left, I will choose right. You can choose. Abraham offered Lot. And that you can read that debate in between, the dialogue between Abraham and Lot. And we read verse 13. While, so 13, Abraham settled in the land of Canaan, while Lot settled among the cities of plain and moved his tent as far as Sodom. So Abraham chose the fertile land and Lot chose cities. You got it? So even though out of dependency, because he lost his father, Lot was forced to, in his childhood, forced to follow Terah. But it was not his will. He, even though he followed Terah and then Abraham, his mind was with the luxuries and the possessions they enjoyed in the city of Ur. You got it? So temptation is still there. Terah moved out of the temptation. Lot moved out, Abraham moved out of the temptation, and they were able to resist the temptation because they looked to the future generations. They had the vision about the future generations. So they were not satisfied with what they have at the present. So they were ready to take any sufferings for the benefit of future generations. So that is very, very important. So we all know the pain and suffering and the risk involved in the migration, you know. So I also belong to the migrated family, but within Kerala itself. You also belongs to the migrated family. So what are the risk our grandparents faced? So that we have to understand that. So they migrated not only for their benefit, but they went through all the sufferings, went through all the pain, so that the future generation will be benefited. So our choice is very important in each stage, life choice. So there existed in the minds of Lot the temptation towards the luxuries of the city life, even though his uncle Abraham and his grandfather Terah decided to leave. So he was not convinced with that. So when time arrived to choose in between, Lot chose to go back to the luxuries and safety of the city. So let us for a while let us go back to the history itself. So we are talking about the present Iraq. That is the cradle of Mesopotamian civilization, Euphrates Tigris civilization. We look at the present world, the big deserts. Take the history of deserts. Wherever this great civilization flourished, in between 1000 and 1700 years, that part will be turned into desert. That is the historical reality. So we see, we know mainly 3 deserts. One in Rajasthan, that is the result of Indus Valley civilization. And the other desert, of the big desert, we see in the Middle East, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iran, and all that. And that desert, that area early was called, even now it is called a fertile crescent. So that is the most fertile land over the world, but that turned into desert now. So you see the fossil fuel is digged out from there, isn't it? Because there, before that, that area was a thick forest thousands of years back. At least we take the history before 10,000 years. So the Mesopotamian civilization turned the Middle East into desert. The other one, Nile, the Egyptian civilization built up in around the Nile River. That also we see the Sahara Desert is the largest desert on the earth. So God never created deserts. God created Garden of Eden with the streams of water. But it is people greed turned the fertile land into desert. So you can read in Psalms 107 verse 33, I think. You see, 34, a fruitful land into salty waste because of the wickedness of its inhabitants. Got it? So God created garden, forest, and He can convert desert into a stream of fertile land, streams of water. And because of wickedness of human being, because of their selfishness, because of their greed, they convert the fertile land into the salty land. That means the salt content of soil slowly will increase. So for that we call, that process we call salinization. And when the salt content increase, that become a desert. So that is the process. So when we go through the history, do you remember the period of Abraham? 1800 BC. So till 1800 BC, Abraham and his family stayed in Iraq, the present Iraq. When we go back to 3500 BC, at that time, the whole area of Iraq, the Mesopotamian civilization, the Euphrates-Tigris River, whole area produced the wheat to supply the whole Europe, filled with the wheat. By 2500, the wheat production reduced to half, and half was cultivated by barley. Why? Barley is more salt resistant. Just listen it. Wheat is not salt resistant. So that is why they have the wheat production reduced to half by 2500 BC. When it came to 2000 BC, it reduced to 1/6. That is, barley production increased, wheat production decreased. That itself shows this land of Mesopotamia or present Iraq was fastly converting to to be desert. And by the time of Abraham, that is 1800 BC, the wheat production totally absent, totally gone from that land. So that is, the whole land was affected by the salt, salinization, salt. The presence of salt increased. So at that moment, Terah and Abraham identified with God's vision that we
Check,
are,
1 2.
our land is going
Mic
to be
check,
a
test,
barren
1 2.
land.
Test,
So
1
within few centuries.
test,
So they may
test,
not.
1.
So that is why in an Old Testament we read about barley harvest,
Check.
not about wheat harvest. Why? By the time of Abraham,
Test, 1 2.
wheat was out of the sea. So that is the
Test,
basic.
1 2. Mic
So
check. Mic
once
check,
the
1 2.
land
Test,
become
test, 1 2.
fertile,
Test.
then it will affect human, it will affect their generations, and it will also affect the fertility rate. So the health of human is directly related to health of soil. If soil become barren, the human also become barren. Infertility of soil is directly related to infertility of womb. And we talk about the sickness, especially nowadays the cancer is increasing. So many sickness, malnutrition. So if soil lose its nutrition, human will lose its nutrition. Got it? It all depends on soil. Whatever may be our scientific explosion and scientific inventions and whatever the science and technology progress will, basically we are bound by the soil. So if soil is affected by cancer, then those who eat from that soil will be affected by cancer. So it is coming from there. When the soil health is lost, the human depend for their food on that soil will be affected by kind of disease. So all the serious disease, every disease, start from the soil. So we have to keep the fertility of soil so that it should not be converted into desert. So if one asks me what is the central message of Bible, I would say the central message of the Bible is Psalm number 107 verses 33, 34, 35. That is, God created the fertile land. Human, out of his wickedness, converted the fertile land into desert. So we can see that message in the journey of Abraham and Lot. So we conclude here and continue in the next week, next Sunday. So next Sunday we will start at 9 o'clock. Okay. Even though we say it is 8:30, nobody comes at 8:30. So 9 o'clock means 9 o'clock. You come by 8:50. Okay. Then it will be benefited for all. Okay. One among you may offer a word of prayer, a short prayer.